Hello and welcome to the first video on the topic of molecular biology with the subtopic molecules and metabolism. Within this video I'll be talking about organic molecules, specifically carbon atoms. Then I'll be moving on to the four classes of organic macromolecules, in this case carbohydrates, lipids, proteins and nucleic acids. Then I'll move on to condensation reaction and lastly hydrolysis. So yes, I hope you enjoy. So first of all, organic molecules are, for example, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and sometimes nitrogen, which are found in key organic molecules, which make up most of the chemicals found in living organisms. And compounds without carbon are generally considered inorganic. And with that, the importance of carbon is integral to organic molecules. So carbon atoms are important because they form 4 covalent bonds because of its structure, which you can see on the bottom. These covalent bonds allow the formation of many different stable compounds, and covalent bonds in general are 2 atoms that share a pair of electrons, and the number of covalent bonds between atoms in a molecule determine the shape and the chemical properties of the molecule. And moreover, carbon atoms are found in all organic molecules and are the basis of organic life. And these aforementioned 4 covalent bonds form stable bonds, which is called condensation. The variety of structures contribute to much of the structure and function of a cell, and the many organic molecules are large and complex, but built of smaller subunits, so-called building blocks. And in this case, the small subunits are monomers and are built into larger complex molecules called polymers in a process of polymerization. And we differentiate between 2 metabolic reactions that form metabolism, and because larger molecules, as I already said, are built from smaller components, in anabolic reactions they are built from these smaller subunits to the bigger unit, whereas in catabolic reactions they are broken down from bigger units into smaller units. So the sum of all anabolic and catabolic reactions in a cell organism is generally considered to be the metabolism, and all of those reactions are catalyzed by enzymes. And the scientific discovery of organic molecules, or not necessarily of organic molecules, but of the artificial synthesis of an organic compound, was by Friedrich Wöhler in 1828, which was, as I already said, the first accidental artificial synthesis of an organic compound from inorganic reactants, which discredited the belief of vitalism, which was the theory that organic molecules could only be made by living organisms. So yes, moving on to the 4 classes of organic macromolecules, starting with carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are the most abundant organic compounds in nature and mostly made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms. They principally function as a source of energy and sometimes short-term energy storage. They're also important as recognition molecules and structural components, as in, for example, in the DNA. And the smaller building blocks are monosaccharides with the general formula of CH2O times N, wherein N is the number of carbon atoms. And these monosaccharides are monomers, so single sugar made up of 1 subunit. On the other side, disaccharides have 2 subunits joined by a condensation reaction, and polysaccharides are longer molecules consisting of a chain of monosaccharides linked together. So yeah, moving on to the lipids. They are nonpolar, hydrophobic, and dissolve in organic solvents, and they are used as energy storage molecules in plant and animals, and they're more of a long-term storage option than carbohydrates. They are also major components of cell membranes. Triglyceride lipids make up fats and oils, wherein solids are considered a fat and liquids are considered an oil. And these solid fats are found in animal organisms, whereas the liquid oils are, for example, in plant storage. They preserve 2 times the energy of carbohydrates, and they also function as signaling molecules, for example, steroids. Then we move on to the proteins. So they are built up of building blocks called amino acids, and there are hundreds of naturally occurring amino acids. They are building the bodies of living things, and proteins are built in condensation reactions. And more than 50% of the dry weight of cells are actually proteins. They function as major regulatory molecules involved in catalysis, which is the function of all enzymes, because enzymes are proteins. They also function as structural molecules and play a role in cellular signaling, such as in transduction pathways. And lastly, we have nucleic acids, which will be the topic of a larger subtopic within the IB curriculum. And nucleic acids are in all living cells and viruses, including the DNA. And they form the genetic material of all cells and determine inherited features of an organism. The DNA is the master code for protein assembly and is found in the nucleus, mitochondria, and chloroplasts. The RNA, on the other hand, plays an active role in manufacturing of proteins, which is again within the nucleus and cytoplasm. Nucleic acid the DNA consists of a chain of nucleotides, which are long and more complex than proteins. So yes, moving on, we have condensation reaction, and in a condensation reaction, 2 molecules join to form a larger molecule held together by strong covalent bonds. This is an anabolic reaction, and it requires enzyme to catalyze the process and produce water, which is why it condensates, it produces water, and it builds monomers to macromolecules or polymers. And last, we move on to hydrolysis, and hydrolysis reactions occur during food digestion mainly, and they break down polysaccharides, polypeptides, and triglycerides, which are the polymers of the aforementioned macromolecules, and they are broken down into smaller subunits and building blocks. So this is the catabolic reaction, where macromolecules are turned into monomers. It's the reverse of the condensation and requires water and enzymes. Polysaccharides, through hydrolysis of starch, become glucose. Polypeptides, the hydrolysis of proteins, become amino acids. And lipids, hydrolysis of triglyceride, becomes fatty acids and glycerol. So yes, this was the topic of molecules to metabolism. These are my sources. I hope you enjoy.